I'm Polly Warren and welcome to the Positive Perimenopause podcast. This is the place for some positive inspiration to help you through the rollercoaster ride of perimenopause. I truly believe that with the right support, knowledge and wellness tools and a large dose of inspiration, this life phase can be a truly exciting and pivotal time of life. With every episode, my mission is to support and empower you to own your menopause, because it's never too late to start taking care of the most important person. Yes, that's you. So thank you for being here and sharing your time with me. Now let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. I hope you are well and have had a good week. Oh my goodness, I am still very much soaking in the magic of my weekend, which has just passed. I had such an amazing surprise by my husband, and in fact, my whole family were in on it. I cannot believe I did not have any idea what they were up to, but I woke up on Saturday morning at about 6:30, and Giles, my hubby, said to me, by the way, today's not going to go quite as you might have been expecting. And I had been thinking, I'll go for a run or I'll go to the gym. And then I had a group breathwork session booked in. And he said, right, pack a bag because we are leaving in an hour. And I was like, what? I was like, my goodness, what about the kids? What about the dog? What about my breathwork session? He's like, it's all sorted. Don't worry about any of it. So we got in a taxi and we went to the airport, and I just didn't know where we were going at all. The kids didn't come with us. It was just the two of us. And on the way to the airport, he did say to me, oh, by the way, I've taken out all of your toiletries and all of your makeup because I didn't think it would get through security airport. So I was like, oh God, where are we going? I've got no makeup. I hadn't put any makeup on or anything. So that was the only thing, but it didn't matter because actually I bought some mascara at the airport and that was it. I found out that we were going to fly to Edinburgh. So we met in Edinburgh, but actually I then had a little inkling of what we might be doing, because a couple of months ago, I looked to get tickets for one of my favourite people at the moment to watch music-wise, Fred Again, because I've always really enjoyed his music. And then I saw him playing at Glastonbury Festival on the telly, and I fell in love with him even more. And I was like, I have got to see him live. So there were some tickets which went on sale for him playing in London, but it's in September anyway. They sold out within seconds and I didn't get them. And I did see that he was playing at a festival in Scotland, but at the time I was like, well, we can't go. We've already been to a festival this year and kids and blah, 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 blah. Anyway, Giles had booked tickets for this festival. Fred Again was headlining. And we went and stayed in a really nice hotel, which was walking distance to the festival. The sun was shining. I mean, I spent 3 years in Edinburgh because I had a year abroad. But the sun, it was always cold. And I know we were never there in August, but it's often howling a gale, and it's pretty chilly, but the sun was shining. I didn't even have to worry about one thing. It was just amazing. We had VIP tickets and we got to the front. We watched first of all Young Fathers, which is a brilliant Scottish group. Really loved them. And then we were right at the front for that. And then we sort of just stayed there. And we were right on the barrier for Fred Again, and he did not disappoint. I literally jumped up and down, danced my socks off, and just loved every single second of it. And the whole thing was just amazing. And such a surprise. So I feel very, very lucky. And the whole point of it was, I'm 50 in November, and it was a bit of an early 50th surprise. So Giles has done pretty well. He's now off the hook because he doesn't really have to do anything else, because I just loved it. Anyway, on to this week's podcast episode, which is with the brilliant Amanda Thebe. Amanda is a fitness and women's health expert with nearly 30 years of experience in the fitness industry. She's also author of the brilliant Amazon best-selling book, Menopocalypse, which I highly recommend that you get and read. I love Amanda's no nonsense approach, and it's just packed full of really handy, helpful tools and tips which are going to help you through your perimenopause and menopause. Amanda is also the co-founder and chief wellness and branding officer at Naya Health, which is a complete healthcare solution for menopausal women in Canada. And as Canada's first menopause workplace educator, Amanda provides on-site or virtual educational presentations in the workplace to improve productivity, retention, and attendance for female employers through menopause. I loved talking to Amanda. She is also so brilliant at calling out people who just are taking information out of context and actually can be really unhelpful. And Amanda is prepared to stand up to the people and just say it how it is and make sure that we as women are getting the truth and receiving the information which is actually helpful and which is backed by science. So without further ado, please welcome the absolutely wonderful Amanda Thebe. Amanda, it's a real pleasure to have you here today on the podcast. You know, when I started this podcast a year and a half ago, I had a little list of names of people I wanted to invite on the podcast. And you were on that list, and here you are today. And I'm talking to you. So thank you so much for joining me.
I made the list.
You made the list. Well, because I had read your book and really loved your book, which we will come on to talk about. And I thought I've got to get Amanda on the podcast. So yeah, it's great to meet you.
Thank you. Great to be here, Polly.
I would love to start asking you how somebody from the Northeast has ended up in Canada and has ended up talking about menopause and becoming a bit of a menopause champion. How on earth does that happen?
Was that on my bingo card, are you asking? No. Well, let's first of all clear up the Geordie thing, because my accent's just messed up, like totally messed up. But I'm from Middlesbrough. Well, I'm from Billingham.
Oh, you're not a Geordie.
Oh, I'm not a bloody Geordie. I'm not a bloody Geordie.
Oh, no, I've offended you right from the off. Oh, no.
From the very start, yeah, you've just kicked me in the nuts or whatever. But so I'm from Middlesbrough area, so Teesside.
Okay.
Right. But when I moved away from home in 2001, gosh, ages ago now, right? And I moved to the US and then Canada, and think my accent slowed down. I maybe sound more northern than I've ever sounded. Don't know why or how. My husband's Scottish. He's anglicized so much that he doesn't sound Scottish anymore. We're just a big mixed bag of messed upness. So, I was brought up in Billingham in like a real working class sort of town, and then met my husband and we moved to London for a little bit, and then he wanted to go to business school and he applied and he got into we went to Boston. So in 2001 he went to business school for 2 years. He went, do you want to come? And then we'd only been dating like a year and a half, and I was like, yeah, sure, which is a very Amanda thing to do. I don't really think about it too hard and just go, I think that sounds fun. Anyway, so I figured, well, what's the worst that can happen? Like, I don't like him and I don't like Boston. I'd come home, right? So anyway, so we went, and he was at business school for 2 years, and I had my first child there, my boy there in Boston. So I have a little American boy. And then he got a job after business school in Canada. And I'd already done a bunch of traveling. I was a huge backpacker, and I'd ended up in Canada and really liked it. And I thought, oh, it would be a really cool place to be and to stay. And he met me at the end of those travels, and we just spent a lot of time there. And so, yeah, we ended up in Canada, in Toronto, and then had a second kid here. And I sort of forged a life here in fitness and wellness. I had like my own fitness company and nutrition company here. My husband's job then took us to Texas, which is the complete polar opposite of Toronto. I mean, you couldn't get two more different places, but we actually really loved Texas, even despite everything, despite it was like Gilead by the time we left. Clearly, all of the women's rights, human rights issues were a big issue for us. But in my little bubble, and my lovely big massive Texan house and my outdoor pool at the local gym that I could use year round, the Trader Joe's supermarket, the good schools. Like I had a good time there. But we eventually moved back to Canada 2 years ago. And it's sort of during that time that all this whole menopause thing started with me. So I'm in Toronto and I'm teaching women, and they're in there, mostly women, I should say. There were some guys I coached as well in their 40s, 50s. And they would say things to me like, yeah, menopause is kicking my butt. And I'd be like, oh, that's okay. We can give you alternatives, like really mindless to what they were talking about when I was about 40. And I was like, I've been doing this like 20, 30 years. I've never learned anything about menopause. There's nothing in the textbooks I was ever taught. So why do they keep going on about it? And then it sort of happened to me. And I was like, oh shit. And this morning, when Google brings your memories up, Google brought up this memory, and it's me in Vancouver with my two children on this suspension bridge. And I'm like one of the people that loves heights, and I like to do sort of scary things and stuff. And I'm on this suspension bridge with my kids, and they're like, going, oh, my mom, we're going to fall. And I'm holding on, going, shit, I think we're going to fall. Like I didn't feel safe. And that's not me at all. And I realized it was because I had vertigo and my balance was going. I didn't feel stable, and it was scary. And that photograph came up today, and it made me pause because it was sort of one of the first signs for me that shit was going awry, and that was the start of my journey essentially. And then I started falling into the medical sort of a whirlpool that everyone tried to help me, but nobody knew what was going on for a couple of years, until a couple of years later I found out all of the symptoms I was experiencing were perimenopause. And I was frustrated, happy that I wasn't really sick, but I was struggling with a life phase that many women struggle with. But then pissed off, like really pissed off that we we didn't know about it. So I was just, how is it that I've now been in a health and wellness industry for decades, don't know anything about perimenopause, experienced it myself, and it was completely blindsided me. And then when I ask doctors for help, they can't help me. Like there was no help anywhere. And so it's a little bit of a different story now, I think, Polly, because you yourself have said that there's so many of us now, like just saying we have to talk about this. And so that was sort of the start of it. And then ultimately the book came out because I moved to Texas, and I was like, I'm not going to pick up my health and my fitness and nutrition business there, because I don't want to like take people on for 4 years and then leave them. It's too heartbreaking. It was heartbroken when I left Toronto and left all my clients. So I wrote the book. But honestly, that it wasn't something I planned to talk about. But as soon as I did start talking about it, much like yourself, I realized that there was a massive need for these menopause champions, as you call them, menopause advocates. And I hate the word expert. And when people call me, I sort of pull back and go, well, that's not fair to call me that, because I'm literally a woman that went through it, did the homework, wrote about it, talk about it, and I'm not an expert, but I have access to lots of experts.
A very quick break to ask you to hit the follow or subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you're enjoying this episode, I'd be super grateful if you could hit those stars and rate it too. Thank you. Yeah, when I was, thank you for sharing that. When I was reading your book, the front bit of your book, Menopocalypse, I've said it right. It's like, yeah,
Yes.
I'm gonna, and I related to so much of that first bit. It could have really very easily have been my story, in that, you entered into your 40s feeling blimmin' brilliant. And as did I had three small children. I was on top of my job. I was a teacher at the time, felt really fit and healthy. I was running half marathons. I was like, yeah, I've got this. This is good. I feel really probably the fittest and healthiest I've ever felt. And then, probably 2 years later, for me, it was like 41, 42. It was like, woomph, I started to experience very gradually. It wasn't woomph, actually, for me. It was very gradual, kind of lots and lots of different changes which came across. But my what I was experiencing was so different to your initial issues which you were experiencing, which are quite unusual. I'd say your symptoms were a little bit unusual in that you it was migraines initially, wasn't it? And what you thought was vertigo, which I have heard women experience, but they're not along amongst the most common of symptoms.
Well, either they're not amongst the most common or they're just not as well known, but they're
Yeah,
but in the medical community who do know about menopause, they're very well known symptoms. It's just, I think a lot of us, because there's a big knowledge gap, we don't go into menopause thinking that migraines are to do with perimenopause. We think missed periods or changes of our cycle, mood swings, maybe hot flashes, and those typical ones. But what happens is the brain, well, we know this now, but the brain like actually has a massive change that it goes through. It shrinks and it adapts to the fact that we're no longer going to be reproductive. It starts going through these changes. I'm part of a study in New York with Dr. Lisa Mosconi where they take images of the brain in those that are in reproductive age, perimenopause, postmenopause, and men, like a full cross section, and they look at the way the brain changes. And it's actually fantastic. So I went when I was postmenopausal. I've been postmenopausal 4 years now. And I went 2 years ago. And my brain fog and the migraines and stuff have mostly gone. I do occasionally have migraines, but not like I did. I had them nonstop. I never didn't have one, it felt like. And now I just get them like now and again. And they're still brutal, but and most of the things that were going on in my brain seemed to have felt better post menopause, which most women seem to notice. And what Lisa Mosconi is saying is that the brain regrows and rebounds because it uses new neural pathways to account for the changes that we're going through. So the brain and the body are really fascinating how we cope with this. But right then in the thick of things, my neurologist didn't even associate the symptoms I had as even being migraines. And even when we did work out there were migraines, he didn't think they were hormonal. Like I just was like, Jesus fucking Christ. Like this is like I'm like having to dig deep just to get basic answers. And my story is not unusual. Yours is, you just said is like the same. And but the fact that my migraines weren't picked up as being perimenopausal was a failing of the healthcare system because it's a known symptom, right?
yeah, no, absolutely. So you had the migraines. What else did you experience, which at that time, which kind of helped you lead you towards this sort of perimenopausal diagnosis?
Yeah, well, for me, it was, I didn't know there were migraines. And so it was actually really awful because when a migraine would come on, what it felt like was somebody was taking their claw around the back of my head and just like gripping my face like this.
Oh
And that's how
God.
it would start. So I'd feel it, I couldn't feel out of my face and my vision went, my mouth would go numb, and then my hand would start clawing, and then I'd start falling over. It was like I was having a stroke. That's what it felt like. And
Yeah.
in fact, one point, my sister who worked in the hospital took me and she said, I think you're having strokes. I think these are like, and it was quite worrying. And just the lack, and also the lack of being able to see somebody getting into the system was a problem for me. So I had these migraines with aura or vestibular migraines, as they're called. And then they would like last for 2 or 3 days, and then I'd have a 2 or 3 day hangover with them, like where I was throwing up. It was like lots of nausea and stuff. Then really struggled with depression. And again, I didn't know it was depression because I'd never had it before. I'd never struggled with depression before. But I could see that I was withdrawing from my family, from my husband, from social events, and I'm very social. Like all I was pulling back and just lacking in joy. And at some points, my depression was so low, I would wake up in the morning and just go, I just don't think I can do another day feeling this way. It was just so like overwhelming. And then other physical symptoms I struggled with were things like incontinence. And I'd had 2 kids later in life and never struggled with them. Like they popped out like torpedoes and everything bounced back into place. Then all of a sudden, 5 years, 4 years later, I'm peeing my pants as I'm running around the streets. And I'm just like, what the hell's going on? And so but I still didn't get a diagnosis, and it was just a random over here in Canada. When you go for like a well woman checkup, like a once a year checkup, you go to a gynecologist, and he just went, "Yeah, everything's fine. You're looking good. Do you feel okay?" And I started crying, and I was like, "Nope." And then he was like, "Oh my goodness, don't worry. This is just perimenopause. I can help you with. I see this every day." And I was like, "Oh my goodness, there's an answer to it." So it was by chance that I think I swore at him because he said, "Have you had any hot flashes?" And I was like, "What are you talking about? I'm like 44." He just started laughing and he went, "Oh, you've got a lot to learn." And so I obviously did.
Yeah. So what did you do? Because to be told that you're perimenopausal, like when I worked out when I was perimenopause, it was like, what the hell? Like, why? And I was so blimmin' cross, firstly, that I didn't know anything
Cross,
about
yeah,
it.
yeah.
And was really angry and had to really get over that. But actually that is what spurred me into action to educate myself and find everything I possibly could. And then it was like, right, well, I can start taking control of this and
I'm no
playing
different to
around.
you.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same reaction. Angry, relieved, then angry, and then action. Literally those things, right? Yeah, I just was like, this isn't okay. And if I'm like this, how are other women feeling? I'm like this, and I have an education in this like female health type thing. But you know what I did is I wrote an article, and I think I called it "The Shite That Nobody Tells You About Perimenopause," and it sort of went viral, and not like in any big numbers, but I think like 30, 40,000 downloads like for one article. And so off the back of that, I created a Facebook group. It's called Menopausing So Hard. I think there's about 20,000 members in there.
Wow.
But it's just a community. There's no sales going in there. You know, it really is just for women to go, "Oh my God, I feel like crap. Is this perimenopause? What should you do? What do you do?" And like looking for support. And I got flooded with people. It was one of the first groups that were out there, and it got flooded with people because I realized that women were feeling alone. And I don't know about you, Polly, but the I put it down to the depression as well, but I've never felt so alone in my life ever. It was just dreadful. But I
Yeah.
also pulled back from people. I also didn't want to be around people.
Yeah, I mean, and
Mm.
that's the problem, isn't it? Because yeah, I mean, I was the same. I really was sort of didn't want to be around people. I withdrew. I was just not myself. But when I did have to see people, I would just like plaster on a smile and make out that everything was okay. Which is, I look back now and go, how on earth did I do that? But it's amazing how you can. Because I just was like, I don't want anyone. I don't want to go around like a real misery and show everyone that I'm feeling shit,
You're
basically.
failing. You're failing. You're feeling like
Yes.
you're not capable. It's a hit to your ego, right? You have to get over that pretty quickly, I
Yeah.
think. But yeah, it's like feeling slightly ashamed about this, like not coping, and also not being able to tangibly put your finger on what's wrong. So
Yeah.
how can you talk to people saying you don't feel good when you don't really understand what's happening? That's
Yeah.
sort of what I think women struggle with.
Yeah, exactly. And the people who are around you, the people who you love, are then obviously getting it. They're experiencing the worst part of you and obviously concerned and worried, but at the same time trying to figure out what the hell is wrong with you. It's a very difficult and lonely place to be. And I think, for anybody who is listening and they're feeling like that, I just want to say that is normal, but yet you don't have to be alone nowadays because there is so much support out
There
there.
is. And the whole fake it till you make it thing as well, like which is what you tend to do when you don't know what's going on, and you're trying to just put this brave face on, is utterly exhausting.
Yeah.
It's so much more it's so much more freeing to be completely honest and say, I'm struggling and I need help. And nobody does that. Women don't do that because we just think we should soldier on.
So let's talk about
Yeah.
some of the positives, the good things that we can then do once we, to
Yeah.
help
Now
ourselves feel
we've made
better.
everyone
Yeah,
miserable.
exactly. This is the Positive Perimenopause podcast after all. I know,
Oh.
I know. So I know, Amanda, you are big into nutrition, into exercise, and particularly into strength and resistance training. And we have talked a lot about that on the podcast before. But I think just hearing it from lots of different people in lots of different ways is a really good thing, because if we all resonate very differently with different people. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about how you got back to feeling your zest again, and what other people can how they can start to get theirs back as well.
I think I'll talk about something that I mean, I coined a term, but I mean, I think it's just a name, and I approach my fitness in a way um, that was very different to me. So I am a very structured person, right? And I think people who tend to be in fitness industry are not. I'm not an A plus. I'm more like a B plus, which is also my blood sign my blood type, by the way. But like I like organization. I don't like chancing things. Like I like to know what I'm going to do when I do my workouts. And what was happening is I at my worst point, I wasn't even getting off the sofa, Polly, to make a cup of tea. That was a big deal. And then at my good points when I was working out, I would do a great workout and then the next day have nothing left. And so I was like to give. And I just was like, can't keep going on like this. It's so frustrating. I'm trying to take control of my health, but every time I do something positive, I pay the price for it. There's like repercussions to this. So I had to really spend a lot of time working out how to make this work. And so I talk about structured flexibility all the time. And it's essentially this. So you talked about my book, and there is a 12-week program in that book. And this is how I sort of approach training in, I would say, mostly perimenopause, because I can tell you right now, 4 years post menopause, I'm just back training to how I was. As soon as as your hormones start to find that equilibrium and they find a calmness, and they do, like the body starts to find like that the right place it should be in post menopause a couple of years in,
And can I
you
just
can start
say,
doing those things.
that's so good to hear, because I don't think we hear that enough
No,
from
you
people.
don't.
So that's such
Especially
a
in the UK. In the UK, you're
exactly.
all going to die young and be
Yeah.
deficient and diseased.
Yeah.
It boils my piss. Don't let me go there. But back to the exercise, right? So I, it's actually one of the pinned posts on my Instagram. So if anyone's interested in looking, I pinned it there because I posted it and people were like, holy shit, you're allowed to change things. You're allowed to go into a workout and not do the planned workout. And I'm like, yes, sure. Who said you can't? And it's because we're rule followers. It's because we like to follow structure. Human beings are like that. And so I came up with this concept of like on the morning, just say you want to work out and say you want to do strength training 3 or 4 times a week. Just say that's your goal and you have a program to do, and you wake up on the morning and it's a Monday morning and you're like, right, I'm going to do my workout. And you just feel like you can't. Most people wouldn't do the workout at all. They would just go, I don't feel like it. I'm not going to do it. And then they'd feel like crap afterwards. And then they'd have this, like, why I'm such a loser. And all of those negative thoughts come around. And so my approach is, what can you do to give yourself a win? What is the one thing you can do today that makes you feel better than you do right now? So always have that in the front of your mind. And so I score myself on a 1 to 10 card. So if I'm 1 to 2, my energy level is depleted. I'm on the sofa, and maybe I have depression. My joints say, got a migraine. I'm not working out today. My body's literally saying, don't do anything. And so don't. But what you will feel better from doing is getting outside and going for a walk, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes. So on those days when I was at my worst, I still made myself go out and have a 10-minute walk or something. And that was my win for the day. So you're looking for something that makes you feel better than before. A 3 to 4 level is where, you're maybe not on the sofa, but you still don't have that energy to be able to do a workout, but you feel like you want to move. So maybe that's like a little bike ride, a gentle walk, or maybe it's some mobility work. Maybe it's just moving and just not sitting around as much. Bing, tick, there's another win. And then moving up the scale, 5 to 6. Okay, so you've got some energy, but that real workout you want to do is still not accessible. So why don't you do the workout without weights? Why don't you just do the movements? Practice your form. do your squats, play around with your foot position, try deadlifts with a broom handle, like actually just practice skills that are helpful in strength training. Going up the ladder, 7 to 8. Okay, you don't feel like you can do an all-out workout, but you're feeling quite energetic and you want to do something. This is where fitness snacking comes in. And I'm like, you've got a 30-minute workout planned or a 45-minute workout, do 15 minutes of it. Just do the first 15 minutes, because what's going to happen is, one, you're going to feel a win for doing something, or two, you're going to get going and you're going to go, oh, actually, I think I can finish my workout, right? But it might not just be at all out. And then on those few days where you feel like 9 to 10 and you really want to give it your all, then carpe diem that workout. And so sort of like use that as a scale. And when I wrote this up in an Instagram post, women were like, oh my God, you're allowed to like drop the weight. You're allowed to just go through the motions. You're allowed to say, no, I'm not doing it today. And I was like mind blowing. I was like, oh my God, it's like we're looking for the permission to make these changes when we don't need to give ourselves permission. You're just allowed to do it because you're the boss of you. And but that's how I still approach my workouts today. But most of my workouts are in that higher range because, my body's just in a better place than it was. And so that's what I would say. If you've had people on, the benefits of strength training, the benefits of just moving in general. Our bodies are designed to move and play and have fun and be strong. And so we need to show women that they're capable. So even when they don't feel capable, what can they do to have a win for that day so that they do feel better about themselves? And that's
Yeah,
sort of my approach to it.
absolutely. And when you get that win and you can then celebrate, it's going to motivate you to do it again. Whereas if you have the fail and you don't achieve it, you're going to just feel rubbish about yourself and you're not going to do it again. So I love that approach. It makes so much sense. And
And the
it's going to
key
make you
and the
feel
key
better.
to the exactly and the key to these wins is consistency. So I'd much rather, if I still worked with clients, I'd much rather a client get up 4 or 5 times a week and do a 10-minute workout than do one workout every 10 days.
Yeah.
They're going to get way more benefit out of those small, like little movements than being sort of sedentary, not doing anything, and then doing it once a fortnight. But then really encouraging women to move more, get
Yeah.
out, move more, walk more, just like understand how important it is for our overall health. Yeah. And
Yeah,
especially
absolutely.
for when we're really symptomatic and the workouts are just not even in your mindset, then get outside and walk. Like just do it. It just is such a helpful thing to add to your life, and it's going to help make some of the symptoms feel better as well.
Yeah.
Stress is intrinsically linked with our symptom management. So when you start going out walking more and breathing and just being outside, it's a stress reducer.
One thing I would like to speak to you about is in terms of strength training and resistance training, weight gain, and how, because I know there's so many women really struggle with weight. And obviously there's that whole argument that we have to accept our bodies are changing and we are going to, we need to accept that we are going to put on a little bit more weight as we go through menopause. However, I know that it really does get a huge number of women down. And so it's that balance, isn't it, between being a healthy weight and not getting too obsessed by it. But in terms of training with weights and resistance training, perhaps you could just tell everybody and just remind everybody why it's so helpful when it comes to weight management.
Well, weight management really does come from nutrition. Like, so you can lose weight and never pick up a weight at all. You can lose weight and never exercise at all. And some women go on such extremely low diets, calorific diets, that they don't have energy to pick up like a dirty dish rag and wash the dishes. Like, it's crazy. And so it's sort of like changing like the focus and saying like your body has gone through this change. It's really hard to accept it for a lot of women, right? But what can you do right now that's going to um, help you and make and maybe help your body composition, and maybe help you understand that food is fuel and not punishment, and all of those different stories that go with it. It's like the undieting type message. And it's really hard for women who've put weight on in menopause to hear this message because they're just like, what's the quickest, fastest way I can lose this weight now? And it's really not the best approach. So, first of all, get your nutrition dialed in, and it's nothing in particular that you need to do. Maybe need to focus more on some protein intake, especially if you are strength training, and eat lots of vegetables, reduce the amount of like ultra processed foods, just to your treats. Don't drink like a fish, like a lot of women do. like really, like look at really practical things about nutrition. But when we talk about strength training, lean body mass has got better health outcomes than lower lean body mass. And so that just means the muscles we have, and you know, a lot of women probably think they don't have muscles, but they'd be like Mr. Blobby if they didn't. They just literally like their bodies would collapse. And so the muscle is underneath our fat, ladies. It's there, but it starts to decline from the age of 30 at a rate of between 3 and 8% per decade. I mean, it depends on every single individual. So we need to do everything we can to hold on to as much muscle as we can. And it doesn't really burn much more um, calories than fat. By the way, I think it's something like 12 calories per pound. It's not very much, but it does sort of make you run more like a Ferrari than a Mini. You know, it makes our body more efficient, and so it uses the fuel more productively. But it's just that muscle also is a very small, densely packed substance compared to fat. So fat takes up a lot of space and muscle takes up not very much space. So a lot of women who, if we was to throw the scales away and just say, do a strength training program for 12 weeks and just look at yourself or take a photograph of yourself before you start and take a photograph of yourself at the end of it. Regardless of what they wear, their shape may change because muscle is really compact. And it's the type of thing that women look for. You know, when women will say, oh, I'd love to have a nice round bum and I'd like to have like nice toned arms. And they say things like long, lean muscles, which is really a misnomer. But what they're saying is they like the way muscle looks on a woman's body. And it does look nice if that's what you're looking for from an aesthetic standpoint. And so, yes, it can change our whole body composition. But it also has huge health benefits. It's not just that it can help us look and feel good. Well, actually, the feel good is one of the health benefits to me because it's empowering.
Yeah.
It's really empowering to lift heavy weights because it makes you feel capable. It makes you feel good about yourself. It makes you feel like the world's your oyster. And it sort of extends outside of the gym or outside of your home dumbbell set. You know, like it's one of the best things to boost your confidence, which is what women need in menopause. But it's helpful for our brain health. And it's used in protocols for depression and anxiety as well as medication. It's helpful for hot flashes. In some studies, that's been shown to reduce hot flashes between 50 and 70%, depending on when you start your programming. And just for longevity in general, it's been shown to help reduce our risk of dying, because we're all going to die, but like by 17%. And so there's a ton of like real good reasons to do it. And I think weight gain, weight management is the least exciting of them all, personally.
Yeah.
And I talk like that because I understand how difficult it is for women to look at themselves and see a completely different looking person in front of them. And you know, there's some physiological changes that happen, like how the place we deposit our fat changes. It moves from the reproductive sort of fat patterning of our hips and our belly, which is what women hold on to for pregnancies. And then as we start to lose our reproductive hormones, the fat starts to lay down on our stomachs. And so we go from a pear to an apple, essentially. And that can be a bit of a shock to women. They're like, where did I get all this belly fat from? Well, you've gone through menopause. It's sort of what we expect to happen. But like, when is too much too much? And what can you do to help that? It's down to nutrition every time. You can't spot reduce. You can't say, oh, I'm going to go on a diet and just get rid of my belly fat, because chances are you'll lose it from your face and your boobs first, because women typically lose fat from a head down perspective. And so there's that element, but also the fact that, you know, when you start to diet, your body will lose fat where it is most likely deposited, and it may not be on your belly. You can't really do that, but what you can do is get strong in your whole body so that your body functions better, so it moves better as a whole machine. And then hopefully it'll just take the stress off you about the weight gain. Typically, women lose weight as well because, of the domino effect. I mean, I'm rambling a bit here because there's
Yeah.
so many aspects to it. But the domino effect of like you start weight training, you feel capable, you feel good, you actually feel like you look better. A lot of women, like it's the psychological side of it. You make better choices. You start trying to get more sleep. It helps you manage stress. You probably don't snack as much. You probably make better food choices. It's just this like
Mm,
this cascade that happens that usually happens quite organically and it doesn't require a ton of effort and a
yeah.
ton of stress.
Yeah. Well, I totally have experienced that myself, and
Yeah.
when you weight train, it's something actually you can see that you are getting better at. It depends
Hmm.
whether that's something, if that is one of your goals, if you want to be able to lift heavier and heavier, but you know that if you follow a plan, you absolutely can lift heavier. Within your reach. Whereas something like weight loss and all that sort of thing, actually, God, you don't have much. Who knows what's going to happen. And that's something I quite like about it, is that you can actually track it. And you're so right. The effects, the ripples of it all are just brilliant. I think you
And the number
can't
one thing
underrate
that
that.
the Osteoporosis Foundation, the National Osteoporosis Foundation, recommend for maintaining and
Yeah.
improving our bone health is strength training. And it's one of the risk factors of menopause, right?
Yeah.
So, like, just lift, ladies. And what I think, Polly, as well, you see them coming out of the Asda with 20 bags of shopping, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to go for the pink dumbbells. Well, we just saw you coming out of Asda. We know you
Yeah.
can lift heavy things.
It's so true. It's so
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I've completely lost what I was about to say. I had something in my head and it went, what was I going to
But that's
say?
that's a true perimenopause
That is a
moment there,
true
Polly.
perimenopause
But
moment.
it-
Oh,
but you
that was it. I've got it back. So about because I think a lot of the narrative when you were talking about osteoporosis, I think a lot of the narrative, particularly here in the UK, is that right, well, you must take HRT because that is going to prevent osteoporosis. And as you have said earlier just now, is that you actually, because I know that you didn't get on very well with hormone replacement therapy, so you haven't taken it, and actually you feel great now, which is just so brilliant to hear. And I love the fact that you are talking about this, because as I said before, we don't hear that enough. But why are we not talking more about lifting heavier weights rather than HRT being the
do you want
solution
me
for
to go on
this?
my soapbox
No.
about this? Because I have a lot to say. So here's the thing, right? So first of all, the national guidelines for HRT, which is only called HRT in the UK, by the way, it's hormone therapy and menopause hormone therapy everywhere else because it's not replacing hormones. It's giving you some hormones, but it's never going to go back to the physiological levels of when you were 20 or 30 or 40. So if you're somebody who went through early menopause, which is under the age of 45 and you're completely in menopause, osteoporosis is a risk factor, and therefore HRT, as it's called, and the body identical, the regulated hormones in the UK, is indicated to help you to not lose bone mass up until the age of menopause, which on average is 51. So that's what the guidelines say. And so there is a specific indication, and especially those women that maybe have gone through surgical menopause or premature menopause, which is the 1 in 100 under the age of 40. But for anyone else, which is the majority of women going through going through menopause at the average age of 51, it's not really indicated for osteoporosis um, in that situation, but it probably will help you, right? I'm not saying it won't help you, but it's just what the indication is for. The National Osteoporosis Foundation don't recommend it as a treatment option at the moment, right? But they acknowledge that it's for premature and early menopause. So we move that out of the way. The narrative in the UK has been hijacked by menopause doctors. They're the ones with the biggest voices. And so when you look at HRT in isolation, you're not looking at a menopausal woman as a whole woman, because there are women out there that don't want to take it. There's women out there that try it and it really doesn't make them feel very good or makes them feel worse. I fall into that category. There's women that are completely contraindicated that should never take hormone therapy. And then there's all the women that want to take it and need it. But then you look at the statistics, 75% of women will experience menopausal symptoms, right? Not all of them will need HRT. 25% of those women need immediate help. They're the ones that their symptoms impact their quality of life. I know I fell into that one. So they're the ones that probably potentially need the HRT right now for their symptom management, right? So not every woman needs to be or should be on HRT, but that's not the message that I hear. I'm listening and watching everything that's happening in the UK, and it's been hijacked by doctors with private clinics that their literal business is to give you hormones, nothing else. Um, so what I would say is try and find someone with a much more balanced approach to this. Somebody that approves of HRT as the gold standard for treatment of symptoms, because it is, but also somebody that talks to you about how impactful lifestyle changes are on menopause symptom management and on overall health. Because I tell you right now, in Canada and the USA, the conversation is completely different, and we talk about everything as a full suite of solutions. In fact, I'm starting a startup company here in Canada that offers full suite solutions to women that may or may not include hormone therapy after their assessment. They're not going to come to us and say, I'm definitely going to get HRT. They may never be able to take it. And so I often hear from women who are these breast cancer survivors, and they're just like, what am I to do? Because I feel like I'm missing out. I feel like my bones are going to break. So let's just look at the full picture. And there's tons and tons of data on things like exercise and sleep and stress management, more data than hormone therapy, which actually is probably a failing on women's health studies. So there's that. But I just think that if you don't look at the middle ground in the gray where all of the stuff happens, and you're completely HRT only, or I'm only natural and I'm never doing HRT, then you're missing out the lion's share of all women. And that's sort of my stance on it.
Yeah.
And so I like a great person to look at in the UK is Dr. Anise Mukherjee. She's a consultant endocrinologist, two-time breast cancer survivor, who literally writes hormone therapy scripts all day long, right? That's her job. She's a menopause specialist. But she also doesn't write them if it's a contraindication. And she also doesn't do ultra high doses. And she also stays within the medical guidelines. So if you have a doctor out there that's talking and saying they've cracked the code, or this is how it has to be, and it's outside the medical guidelines, then to me, you need to pause and just go, why? What's the ultimate reason that they're talking like that? And I think I've questioned it out loud. I say these things out loud, and some people think that maybe I shouldn't question it, but I think it's important that we do.
I think it's important that we do too. I think,
Yeah.
it's a 360 approach, menopause, and
Yes.
also for our long-term health. HRT isn't going to make us live a long, healthy life on its own. It needs to be a whole 360 approach. Diet and lifestyle and stress management, all of that sort of stuff is super important, and it's going to benefit everybody. And as you say, HRT might support some, and it might not necessarily be needed.
Can be included, and it doesn't have to
Yeah,
be. It's exactly that. And for example, if you're on hormone therapy and you're not feeling any better, and
which
you've
we
tried all
hear
the
which we hear a lot.
yeah, that was my experience. But then you're drinking every night, or you're not paying attention to the food you're eating, or you're not sleeping well, or you've got a really stressful life, because we do have stressful lives. Then it's not going to work as well as it can if you don't put the other things in order to. It's everything, right? And all of these everythings don't have to be stressful or complex either. And actually, in my book, I think you remember, Polly, at the end of every chapter, like how to think, I talk about building a resilient mindset. It's like practice one thing all the time, every day. Don't try and do 1,000 things. Like, it shouldn't be radical to have these type of conversations, I don't think, but it feels like it is in the UK, I think.
One thing I do really admire about you, Amanda, is your ability and your will to call people out and just state when something perhaps is not the truth, or is blown out of all proportion. And I enjoy your Instagram for that, and I think people need to be doing it. So I thank you for that.
But I don't go personal, and that's the thing, right? People are like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you've done that," and I'm like, "I'm not personally attacking anyone. I just feel like if I see misinformation out there or something that's got more to it, more context, I'm happy to talk about more context. And if it's not within my scope of practice, I'll reach out to the experts and say, hey, is this the case? What do we have? What studies do we have? And I'm okay doing that. And not everyone's going to agree with me. Not everyone's going to like me, but whatever. Like, it's my playground. I'll do what I want. But there was one thing the other day. I remember there was a UK influencer, and it doesn't matter who she was, but she was like, and menopausal women, you need to be careful how you exercise, because if you get too stressed, then you'll have high cortisol and you'll get high belly fat, and it's just a recipe of disaster. And I'm just like, tell me you don't understand the cortisol stress response without telling me. Like, she literally got it all wrong. And the minute that we say that exercise makes cortisol response worse, means that you don't understand human physiology. And so I did a post on that. Exercise acutely raises your cortisol. Of course it does. You want it to, because what happens then is it adapts. And anyone with chronic like stress it's gone on for months and months and months. When you start exercising and doing and getting acute stress, like that quick stress cortisol response, your body starts to say, oh, and now I need to recover. And
Yeah.
it helps you actually have a more sensitive cortisol response, and it's better for you. So saying to women, don't exercise and don't move because it's going to make your cortisol worse is like, oh my God, I just want to scream. I just want to scream. And so I do scream, and then I do a post about it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. Amanda, my last question I ask all
Okay.
my guests on this podcast is, because it's called the Positive Perimenopause Podcast, I like to give the listeners a practical takeaway, which they can put into action straight away. Is there something that you could give them?
Right. So I would say to women, just in the theme of the conversation we've had today, we know that in postmenopause, most women, and we've got studies on this statistically, most women in a 3 to 5 year window start to feel better, right? Whether you're on HRT or not. And so the journey that you're on is definitely not a cave. There is a light at the end of that tunnel. So just keep looking forward. So even in the thick of it, when you're feeling at your worst, and I've told you to go for a 10-minute walk and you do it and you say, okay, Amanda said that's a win. Don't sit there and think that it's going to be like this forever. Know that the journey is going to progress and you're going to go have your ups and downs, but it's going to get better. And that's my takeaway for this. And so all of those small things that you're doing, looking for your protein, taking 5 minutes to yourself, like doing self-care, going for your walks, doing some strength training, they all compound and add up. And I felt the same way myself. And I'm telling you, I'm here telling you, hurry up, come to me, because it's worth it. It's worth putting all the effort in almost like in a prophylactic way. Just keep doing it, because how you live the second part of your sort of like menopause life is really important, and you need to start the work now.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Thank you so much, Amanda. If anybody wants to find you, get hold of you, get your book, I'll put your book in the show notes, but how can they find you? Where should they come?
My website's amandathebe.com. And everything's there, like all roads lead to my
Great.
social media. Social media is the funnest place to find me, though.
Absolutely. Amanda, thank you so much. I love your no nonsense talk, and all the work that you're doing in this menopause space is brilliant. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Polly. Take care.
I will put all of Amanda's details into the show notes. Here are the highlights. Number 1, a daily win is a daily victory. What's one thing you can do today to give yourself a win, because it will make you feel better? Number 2, your body is designed for movement, play, and strength. Embrace this and give yourself permission to adapt on less than optimal days. Number 3, remember, food is fuel, not punishment. Prioritize protein and whole foods and cut back on ultra-processed foods. Number 4, lifting weights is not just about fitness. It's empowering. It boosts confidence. It's good for your brain health, depression, anxiety. It reduces hot flashes between 50 to 70%, and it helps reduce our risk of dying. Number 5, building muscle can reshape your body, enhancing your confidence and overall well-being. Number 6, Start weight training and watch the domino effect of positive changes cascading into your lifestyle. You'll feel better, you'll start eating better, you'll get more sleep, you'll manage stress better, and you won't snack as much. Number 7, not every woman needs to or should be on HRT. 75% of women will experience menopause symptoms, but not all of them will need HRT. 25% of women will need immediate help where symptoms affect quality of life. Number 8, if menopause, however, hits you before 45, do consider HRT as a preventative measure against osteoporosis. Number 9, keep your gaze on the horizon and look forward. The journey through menopause gets better with time, even when it seems tough. And number 10, remember all those small steps have a big impact. Every healthy choice adds up. Even if it doesn't feel like it at the time, these small steps are immensely worth it. I really do hope you've enjoyed today's episode. If you have, do feel free to share it with a friend who you feel may also benefit from it. And also feel free to like and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, and perhaps come and leave us a review. Leave me a review. It always really helps get this podcast out there. As ever, if you're still listening, I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. It does mean the world to me. Always come and give me your thoughts on these episodes, or if you've got any ideas for something you might like to listen to, or potential guests, do let me know. You can email me at info@pollywarren.com, or you can come over to Instagram at pollywarrencoaching. Thank you again. Have a wonderful week, and I cannot wait